evening, everyone. This is the August meeting of the Watertown Commission on Disability. I'm Kim Charlson, Chair of the Watertown Commission on Disability. And first of all, I want to recognize those members who are here this evening. So would you each identify yourselves as members of the commission or our liaison from the town?
Can I just interrupt one quick second? This
Absolutely.
is Stephanie. I just realized that I can actually write into the chat box. So John, if you prefer to have the chat open, there is a the entire text is coming up. So
when you say the chat box, which is that?
At the very bottom, it says chat next to, on my screen, it says mute, stop video, participants, chat. And if you click on chat, you should be able to see the text right next to it.
Okay, well, I'm on an iPad, so it's probably a little different.
Okay, yep, never mind, scratch that.
No, actually, I'm on an iPad. I've got a MacBook Air, and I just went on chat, and I can see your, Stephanie, I can see your writing.
So John, you might have to go to the menu that says more with the dots.
You're
and then
right.
Under more will be a chat.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
But it might be worth grabbing it.
Okay, that's terrific.
Oh, good. That's great. Stephanie, could we just ask you to step out of your cart roll for a couple more seconds and just explain, since we're on Community Access TV, that there is card access for this meeting tonight?
I'm sure. I'm writing to a web link for Carol Menton, but I found out that I don't have to be assigned CC in order to put the captions within Zoom. It is just in the chat window instead. So it is there if anyone wants it.
That's great. Thank you. It's a great discovery. All right. So let's return back to our identification of the members of the commission. And I don't know what order you guys want to introduce yourselves.
Looking at my screen, top row is Stephanie, me, and you, Kim.
Okay.
So
and you...
I'll start.
Thank you.
Personnel director and ADA coordinator.
I'm Lissa Gifford, a member of the commission.
Naomi Ridge, also a member.
Alon Rhodey, member.
I'm Carol Wilson Brown, member and secretary.
Lisa Feltner, town councilor, liaison to the Commission on Disability.
I'm wondering where I went to. I don't see.
You don't see you?
There are 9 screens. I don't care if I don't see me. Can you see me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
You have to scroll, tap your screen to move, because the iPad only can handle 9 at a time.
You're all by yourself.
I don't need to see myself.
And you are?
I'm John Hawes, member of the Commission on Disabilities.
Yeah, and I think I'm next. I'm Carol Minton. I'm also a member of the Commission on Disability. And one thing, when we're talking, like, if we're not really having like conversational talk, it's often helpful for sound quality for everybody except for the speaker to put their mic on mute. So just keep that in mind. And I have a concert going on. You can hear it. Over there.
In the rain, my goodness. All right. Thank you, everyone. And it's great to have all of you together. This is our first meeting since January. So it's really good to have everybody together and to have the commission back together again meeting. Just a few housekeeping items. If we have any members of the public who should wish to speak to us this evening, we will do that prior to launching into our evening's agenda. And I do want to recognize and thank the Watertown Community Access Television for carrying this evening's meeting and making it possible for us to have our meeting and also to have it be captioned and available to people in the community who are deaf or hard of hearing. So thank you. All right, do we have any members of the public who wish to be recognized for the Commission on Disability this evening? Not hearing any. All right, we will move on. I do not believe we have any identified speakers this evening. So we will move on to the chair's report. And just to say that I don't have a lot to report on. We have not met for many months. We don't generally meet in the month of February, so we were off then, and then March came along and all of our lives changed very dramatically. So we haven't met since then. And so there hasn't been a lot of activity in a lot of cases of many of the town's commissions. But we did feel it was really important to try to get the commission back together and on track to carry on with the work that we do. So, so I've been doing what I can do and working with Gail, and she's been doing what she could do, given the circumstances that we were all in during the shutdowns and partial working and all those different things. So, so we'll move on to the acceptance of the minutes for the long ago January meeting. Were there any additions, corrections, changes to those minutes that were submitted by Carol? So hearing none, is there a motion to accept the minutes for the January meeting?
So move.
Okay, I'll
Len, you got it.
I think it was Alon made the motion, and I'll take John as the second.
That's fine.
Okay, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. All right, the minutes have been adopted. And next on the agenda is our treasurer's report, and that is Gail. So we'll turn to Gail for an update.
Okay. So the treasurer's report that I emailed you previously was to end fiscal year 20. And then we'll start FY21 once all of the information is entered into Munis for effective 7/1/20. But this report, these balances are for 6/30/2020. So the income for the fiscal year was $8,194.83. And the expenses were $14,280.49. So right as of the end of the fiscal year, there was a balance of $48,057.18. Now, because a lot of that money, as we know, in all the previous fiscal years, was spent on captioning of the town council meetings, and now that expense will go away. We just have one July meeting that we've been invoiced for, and after that, everything is going to be done through cable access TV. So I think that we'll be in a better financial position going into FY21.
So that's big news for us that the town did find funding and put that into the cable TV budget to cover captioning moving forward in fiscal 21. So I wanted the minutes to reflect that that had happened. And I think I wanted to just say to Gail and other members of the commission, do you feel that it would be appropriate for us to send some kind of a thank you note to town manager and the council?
Yes, I think that would be a great idea. I think that, we asked for support, we got it, and it's always great to recognize it.
Yeah, I think so too. So I will do that and work with Gail to make sure that that gets out in the next couple weeks. So it's exciting. It's exciting news, and I think that Megan O'Halloran has joined the meeting. So I just wanted the record to reflect that she is joining us, one of our members. All right. Other comments or things to report on the treasurer's report, Gail?
No, that's
a pretty big one right there, I have to say. Exciting. All right. Any questions from anyone?
I'm assuming our income is going to suffer from a lot less people parking illegally because there's just a lot less people parking anywhere right now. But was that you were looking for a new parking enforcement officer? I was just wondering if that was where that stood.
We filled the position in March and immediately told him, there's a hold. The town put a hold on parking enforcement during the first couple of months of COVID. So there wasn't any requirement for the part-time enforcement officer to start. So he just started last month, I believe. We brought him back once the town started ticketing again. So we do have, 1.5 positions fully filled now.
Great.
Okay. We haven't had that for quite some time, so that's good to hear. Okay. Any other questions for Gail? Hearing none, is there a motion to accept the treasurer's report for, I guess it would be for FY20. She did a final report, or pretty much final, I think.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. The treasurer's report is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to committee reports and find out if there's anything that's been going on in the last several months. John, is there anything new in the area of plans review?
Well, there was one project down at what used to be the Harvard Business School Publishing, part of Athena Health, and they basically applied to the state for variance, curiously enough, to take 1 flight of stairs out of 5 out. But it was one of these curious kinds of requests, but they did it obviously for some kind of security reason. And I responded and I saw no problem with it. There was an elevator right nearby and there were other stairs right nearby. So they went ahead and they got the approval from the state. I'm not even sure if we wrote a letter to the state in support, but I think it all went through. So, and that's really been the only, there's one other project for a storage facility over at Coolidge Hill, but I think that's actually been shot down by the boards. So I commented on it because I do still write the reports for the department meeting with the town departments where they review projects. So life seems normal in that respect.
All right. Pretty quiet. That's a good thing.
I was just going to say that the property's for sale, so it looks like the storage is not going to go forward because they actually got approved for self-storage there.
As opposed to housing,
Right.
right?
Okay. All right. Well, we have item B on here, which is caption update. And I think Gail probably gave us the biggest update of all. Carol, I can't imagine you have anything that could top what Gail had to report, but you know, this might be the last time this is on our agenda and, you know, as a
Right.
regular item.
Yeah, we can hope.
So, all right. Okay. Item C on the agenda is special education update. Naomi, do you have anything to share with us?
Well, obviously, with the schools having to come up with the hybrid or fully remote, there's a concern for students with disabilities and how they will be provided for in these situations. From what I'm aware from listening in on their Zoom meetings for they had one for students on IEPs and 504s. There's a lot of thought going into it. Students who were significantly or outside of the regular classroom, they're hoping to bring back almost immediately to work with those students who, you know, couldn't really be provided for in a remote fashion. But I think realistically everyone's going to suffer, both students with disabilities and without, and I don't think anyone knows how it's going to work until they start trying it. So I think it's just something we've got to keep an eye on, make sure. I'm going to keep my ear to the CPAC meetings and everything, and make sure that they're aware that we're here if they need advocacy or if anyone needs help in any way. But I think right now we've just got to wait and see, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's understandable. I've been living the construction side of our school because I live right behind the Cuniff Elementary School, and they tore it down in June, and they started building it in July and August. So it's been a rather noisy summer at my house. And probably will be for quite some time.
I walk past every day to see how it's going. It's toddler heaven with all those giant construction vehicles. So I see families gathering in the cemetery, the other side of the fence, with a picnic, just there to watch.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of the family entertainment go-to place. The kids come like every few days and just are standing at the fence looking in and are just totally amazed. You got to hurry, Mom, come see what's happened, you know. It's a total amazement at the building and how fast everything changed from a school building to nothing to now there, you know, is new construction going on. So it's been pretty amazing. So.
And half of the Hosmer is gone too.
Yeah.
Well, the only part of the Hosmer that's gone is the auditorium and the related buildings, because Hosmer itself is going to stay for the next couple of years until some of the other school work is done. So what you're seeing is simply the old auditorium coming down, and on that site, the new Hosmer is going to be built. And when it's finished, then they'll tear down the old Hosmer. So it's quite a setup.
Yeah. It is definitely. But
yeah, unfortunately, in terms of special education during the current pandemic, it's a mess. But it's a mess for the regular students too, and we just have to see how it pans out and hope we can be there for any students that need the help or the advocacy from us.
No, that is absolutely true. I know just a case in point in a short story, when Perkins closed and the students went home and the teachers left and they started planning for remote teaching of students all over the state, the teachers realized that they didn't have any way to produce any Braille materials for the students because the teachers left and none of them took Braille embossers with them.
Mm-hmm.
So they were saying, you know, what are we going to do? We don't have Braille embossers. How are we going to get Braille lessons to the students so they can read and continue their learning? And so I wrote back and I said, well, the library will do a Braille and Mail program. And this was just, I sort of thought this up at the spur of the moment because I realized there was a crisis happening. And I said, we'll do Braille and Mail. So Braille and Mail happened right out of this room that I'm in right now. Teachers sent their lessons and assignments to me, and my transcriber on staff at the library would format the documents and get them ready for embossing, and then they would come back to me because I got a Braille embosser from the library. It's about 70 pounds, brought it home with a cart, and it's right behind me, and got some paper and just started cranking out spelling words and math quizzes and reading exercises. And by the end of July, because they got to take a break in August, I had brailled about 160 different handouts, either quizzes or history readings or whatever this teachers needed done. And that amounted to about 1,200 pages of Braille that came out of my office and then went into the mail and got sent directly to the students. And then the teachers would connect with the students via remote access, just like we're doing this evening. So they were able to continue to get their Braille materials and have their classes. So that was my contribution to making sure that the students would continue to learn something during the downtime. So, but it was quite a process. So
That's great.
yeah.
It's nice to be in a position to be able to do something really positive.
Exactly, and not have to ask somebody else if it's okay if I do it. I
Right.
just did it, you know. So it was a problem. I said, we got to come up with a solution. This seems like a good solution, and I was able to do it. So it was good. All right. Well, safety and access. There have been a few, reports of signals not working and things like that, and I've just reported those to DPW, and they've seemed to be pretty good about fixing them. So, so that's gone pretty well. So I don't know if Gail or anyone else has anything to add in the area of safety or access, but that's pretty much it. I mean, people weren't out that much, so there wasn't much to say. So.
I just had a couple comments, Kim. This is Lisa speaking. Just to let folks know, there were several complaints about Galen Street when the fencing went up for the demolition there between the square and where the old Valvoline and the demolition's taking place. Just because the sidewalk was blocked. But in talking to the developer, they did go out and adjust it to, push it back as much as possible. So they're, because there's some cutouts and the sidewalk there isn't in places very wide. So that was good that they did that. That project hasn't been approved yet. They just got approval to demo the site, and then they'll be coming forward with plans. The other thing is on the parking management plan, the town has made some progress. I don't know if Lisa or Gail want to speak to this, but one thing I was wondering I didn't want to assume, but an accessibility point, we're not looking at doing kiosks, but individual meter heads existing, but we don't have the phone technology ready yet. it's just credit card. And I know for a non-disabled person, people, you know, everyone, they usually want the phone, plus with COVID, not having to touch things, to have touchless contact. So I don't know if people individually or if the commission wants to weigh in on that, that if there's a, to me, it makes sense that we'd have the technology all in place before we roll it out. Because people pretty much, you know, using their phones, or if you want to add time to the meter rather than having to try to go back physically and use a credit card. It will also be taking coins, so you don't have to use a credit card. So that'll be nice. And in some places, you won't be limited to just 30 minutes or an hour. So the details are still being worked on with the Department of Community Development and Planning. And you might remember Laura Weiner, our transportation planner, came to one of our meetings. So I just wanted to mention that. And then the last thing is that we'll be looking at 2 community meetings coming up. The first one, September 10th, because of the marijuana application for well, I think of it as Watertown Square, North Beacon, Arsenal Streets, and kind of Patton Ladd Street. And that'll be a Zoom meeting. So I'm sure John and Kim and Gail will be looking at the plans, but I wanted to mention that, and that notice will probably be going out and maybe next week.
So why did you mention the streets? Is that where a location is going to be?
Yeah, the location where the former florist on one side and the kind of near the Speedy Hess gas station, that section between Domino's, and there's a couple houses, and then I think it's Anthony's Florist and the limousine company on the other side. Not a great looking building.
But they're still in business though, right? Or did they go under?
No, they're not in business anymore. The property was sold.
Oh.
Oh dear.
Well, it's a P&S on condition they get the permit. So they're looking to sell. And the other community meeting is on Arsenal Street. Instead of putting in a grocery at the Hanover Crescent development, the first one that was done near Beechwood in Arsenal. The first project that was built, not the Gray Star that's at Irving on Arsenal, but the first one. And there's been an empty lot there. There was supposed to be a grocery going in, and they're looking now to change that and make it biolabs commercial office. So that'll be another community meeting in September, because they have to come back to the board, since that's a major change to the permit that was granted about 5 years ago. And I was gonna say on Irving Street, it took a while, but they did move the equipment there at North Beacon and Irving, and to try to keep the trucks off the sidewalk. So the new project with the condominiums going on in North Beacon between Ladd Street and Irving. So just, I've been staying at home too, but I try to get out and see what's going on, and people call me. So and I know I haven't sent things to the whole commission, but just to let you know, between DPW and planning, I've been trying to keep the communication going on pedestrian safety.
Thank you, Lisa.
I'd actually forgotten that that project that you just did, Linda, just described, which is going to be a small office building between those 2 huge projects on Arsenal Street. And it's too bad there's not going to be a supermarket of some kind, but it is going to be biotech or some kind of office. And I reviewed the plans, and there were no problems with them. It's just not a very interesting project. But anyway, it is consistent, and it'll be completely accessible. An interesting thing about that, I think it's that project, but it may be another one, but I'm now I saw a set of plans. I think it's actually another project on that goes from just below Walnut Street, just back of Arsenal, and just east of the big Hanover project. And it was interesting to see the toilet layouts. And I mention this partly because it's a major accessibility issue. But now instead of having great big multi-user toilets, it's like one project, it must have like 12 individual use bathrooms on every floor for every sex. And that to me is kind of an amazing shift. And I bet that's going to be the future.
So,
Wow.
so it's like a COVID design for the kind of the future.
I think it's coming.
Yeah.
Which,
Wow.
which then solves all kinds of issues of gender issues and you know and potty parity, because presumably, in fact, all of these can be used by anybody, although I think they'll be done by sex.
Yeah, and the schools too, they're looking at moving everything to touchless for the water fountains and in the bathrooms as much as possible. Hopefully town hall, look at Gail. The library, who knows?
Yeah, town hall has already been retrofitted with a lot of the touchless soap dispensers, the touchless paper towel dispensers in the bathrooms. The water bubblers were switched out for touchless, which is great. You know, put your cup under and the water comes out and you pull your cup away and it stops. So that was retrofitted during the first couple of months.
Yeah, the individual toilets, I think, are a huge thing for people with disabilities who need help in the bathroom too, because often the disabled stall is inside the women's restroom or the men's restroom. And then if you've got somebody with you who's of the opposite gender, you can't have somebody come in to help you in the toilet. So I think that's huge for adults with disabilities who need help in the bathroom, that they're the individual stalls. On a different note, but still related to safety and access, which I think is where we were at. The crossing outside, is it 1084 Belmont Street, the Francis, what used to be the Francis Food Mart now is reopened as the Francis Market and is very nice inside, I have to say. But they've fixed the crossing there, so it now has the lowered curbs and the bumps, you know, it has a name, right? The little sidewalk with the bumps on to help you see and know where the crossing is. So that's, I think, success on our part, because I think the fact that we mentioned it to the council or DPW is why it got done. So yay.
Absolutely, yay. So those are called detectable warnings, those bumps, detectable warnings. Yeah. But that's a absolute kudos to you, Naomi, and bringing it to our attention as well. So that's a good one.
Yeah, I feel a lot safer crossing Belmont Street now.
So our conversation reminded me of two problem issues that I identified in the last couple weeks. One of them I sent to Gail. I had the opportunity a couple of weeks ago to go to the CVS. And the reason I went to the CVS was to pick up a prescription, because the Watertown CVS was the first CVS in the country to have a service called Spoken RX. And I worked with CVS for about 2 years to get this in place. It's part of the CVS pharmacy app that will read a barcode, an RFID sticker that is placed by the pharmacist on a prescription bottle. And the Outspoken app, which is right inside the CVS pharmacy app, you go to that and you scan it using the camera of an iPhone, and it will read the barcode, the RFID sticker, and it will tell me what the prescription bottle is, what the dosage is, and what the instructions are for me to take it. So I was picking up the first prescription to get an RFID tag and to get a photo taken with the pharmacist, Mary, the lead pharmacist at the CVS. So that was the reason, which was exciting because it's a great accessibility step forward for Watertown. And now they're rolling out this spoken RX service all across the country. They're going to have 1,500 pharmacies equipped with this service by the end of the year.
All
And
right.
by the end of next year, they'll have all 10,000 of their pharmacy locations will have the capacity to equip a blind or visually impaired customer's prescriptions with the RFID sticker, and they can use the smart technology, or if they don't have a smartphone, they can get a speaker that will be available after the first of the year, where the speaker will read, they just set the bottle on the speaker device and it will read the same information that the app will read. So that's a really great step for CVS and accessibility. But the story was, when I got there, I was with someone who uses walking crutches, and they were with me, and we parked in a handicapped parking spot, which was great, but we couldn't park at the one near the bank because there was construction trucks parked in it doing work at the bank. So we got, we went into the CVS, and my friend was saying, that trucks shouldn't be parked there. They're blocking 2 handicap spaces so that people can't park there. So when we came out, there were a couple workmen there, and we said something to them, and they said, "Oh, okay, so you can park over there." They didn't care. My friend took pictures, so I wrote it up and I tried to send it to the police department, but I didn't have the right email addresses. So I sent it to Gail and I said, "This was a violation I just experienced. I took these photos. Can you send it to somebody at the police department? Because, they're going to be there doing construction for a while, and they shouldn't be parking their construction trucks in the handicap parking spaces right there outside the bank." So I did that, but I never heard anything. So, which was disappointing, but.
And a potential for fines.
I would say so, yes. So I don't know if Gail, if you sent those to the parking officer or not, but.
I sent them to the police department, and just before I was closing down this afternoon, I saw an email from Captain Dupuy, and it had that subject matter on it. So I think they were spoken to, and they shouldn't be here anymore.
Well, that's good. That's good. So my other follow-up is going to take some support from all of you, because I'm not quite sure. I do have photos of this too, but I haven't sent them to anybody. But this is about the alley before the CVS, the pedestrian alley, and someone, I don't know who, has put up sort of like gates to keep cars or something from going through the pedestrian alley, and they're like sort of waist-high gates. Do people know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Ornamental gates, and they've got like ornamental W's on them, I'm assuming to represent Watertown as a W. So, but I think that the design, I've had a couple of blind people tell me that they think the design is kind of dangerous for blind people because their canes go right under it and they smack right into the gates. So, because there's no crossbar at the bottom to stop the cane or detect it in any way. So I think that we might need to take a second look at the design there. I think they're wrought iron and beautiful, as oftentimes artistic creations like that are, but I think that there's a bit of a safety hazard pending. So I'd like to maybe have a couple people take a look at it beyond my poor photographs that I can share with the commission, and maybe we can make a recommendation on how possibly they could make it a little safer for everyone.
That would be great. My understanding is Jeremy, DPW kind of did that on their own. And so I'm sure the town would appreciate input from the commission and users to maybe have some suggestions.
Yeah, I think it's fixable, but yeah, I don't think it's technically ADA compliant. So we could probably take a look at it and then collectively maybe put our thoughts together and make a recommendation. And I'll send my photo that I took so everybody can see it if you haven't had a chance to go by there and observe it. Okay. We have How Park, the dog park on the agenda. Gail, did you have something to report on that, or
Yeah,
John, I think, had requested we
Yeah,
add
I
this to
had
the
sent
agenda.
the email to Jesse over at DPW and Jesse Maya. And I was talking with him yesterday, and he said that is going to be part of a contractor fix or project in probably September or early fall.
And that is the pouring of the concrete so that there's an area for someone in a wheelchair. Correct, John?
Well, what I noted there, actually, I took pictures of this and the on the Filipello Park, which has got a lovely new dog park. It's huge. The east side really made out as far as dog accessories. But
I'm sorry, John. John, I'm sorry. This is Stephanie. I didn't get the name of
It's Filipello. I'm not sure how to spell it exactly, but it's a park in the east end of Watertown. Any rate, it's a situation where this was the request or the complaint originally from our, and I forget the name of the family there who live right on the park.
40. It's F-O-R-T-E.
Right. And so I think it's been at least a year ago that I put through a request, and this went to DPW and was going to be done a year ago as part of the fall work. And it's basically putting a concrete slab, extending the existing slab that you come into when you go through the first gate. When you go to the second gate into the park, then a concrete pad should be extended so that a person in a wheelchair can actually roll into the dog area with their dog. And then there should be a bench there for a person, an accompanying person, to sit. And this is exactly what they've done, at least 3 entrances over at Filipello, which is exactly what needs to be done. So I think it's pretty clear what needs to be done. And so it's just a matter of not letting it get beyond this next month or so.
Yeah. Good. Well, thank you, Gail, for talking with Jesse and getting an update that it will be part of the September contractor work for the park. So we can get an update at our next meeting. All right. That's the end of our committee reports. Moving on to new business. Do we have any new business that we want to talk about this evening?
I had a request, and I think that was the reason I was inquiring back in June about when we would meet. My wife is on the Community Foundation, and I'm on the Marshall Home Fund. And these 2 boards have been extremely aware of the needs of the community, since the beginning of the pandemic. And money has been assigned to various groups. And of course, it occurred to me at some point that given that we do have some funds, and that it might be worth thinking about whether we as a board want to make some contributions appropriately to groups in the town, or even outside sources that might be doing a lot of work in the town. So I'm just throwing that out as something that, again, I've been conscious of with these other boards. And there is some attempt through the resiliency fund that they've just set up to try to meet people's immediate needs. So I just throw that out for what the board might want to do, because we do have a time frame, obviously, to introduce and then vote on something.
So I have my hand up. So Carol Minton here, and to tie on to what John just said, earlier in the pandemic, I think I sent all of you some articles related to masks and clear masks and things related to, making it easier for people who have hearing loss to understand better by seeing, a person's face. So that's like one idea. I mean, there's not one perfect mask. If you have the beautiful all clear mask, right, then you're going to lose so much of the sound quality. And so for somebody who's hard of hearing, will see the face beautifully, but then the sound will be muffled and it will like kind of like bounce back to the speaker. So there are different types, but that's something we can explore. I know my agency, we can't recommend anything because number one, there is no one perfect clear mask or whatever. And, number two, it's just like what works for, one person or a child or whatever isn't going to work for another. That said, I had an audiology appointment last month and I was so nervous because I'm like, how am I going to understand? I'm going to fail this audiology exam because I'm not going to understand, And so my audiologist had a clear mask and then she had a shield, but it went pretty well. So anyways, long story short, I would love to see like this pushed with the senior center, because we know most elders, if not all, have some kind of a hearing loss. And with the Board of Public Health, if those public health nurses who see people in the community, because you don't know, hearing loss really is a hidden disability. So, if you could kind of like maybe research clear masks for those two departments. My thoughts. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts?
So I think there are a lot of possibilities for things that could absolutely help, but I wonder if, John and Carol, if you can kind of put your thoughts together for our next meeting. I know that the Marshall Home Fund has been doing a lot of good work and, community groups that need support. So maybe we can look at helping some of those. We've been kind of sidelined for the last 4 or 5 months and haven't, quote unquote, done anything directly to assist the community. But I think we'd all be in favor of making some contributions in some areas that would make a difference. And if we can identify where those might be and what organizations might need some support in some ways, whether that's the senior center, or is it, some of the organizations that the Marshall Home supports, or the Watertown Community Foundation. I think those are all good possibilities. I think there's a lot of places where we could make a difference.
I have one question though. This maybe is a question for Gail. The Watertown Foundation has a certain charter. I mean, it has to be spent on Watertown related things, but it also has the ability to give money to organizations like Springwell and others, and Metro West, because they serve the town and they serve a lot of the needs of the citizens. On the other hand, I think we're limited somewhat by, given that this is town money. I think the only private groups we've been giving money to regularly are the two food banks. And I think maybe there's just one food bank now. But at any rate, I don't have any particular thoughts, though, about specific places, except, you know, the old standbys. I'm not sure that the food banks need the money right now. They've been getting quite a bit of money, and but there may be other really that are very much Watertown related things, organizations, or maybe even in the town itself. Are we able to give money in effect to, for instance, one of the things the Community Foundation does is it buys Narcan supplies for the police department. I mean, there are things like that that are sort of general use. Now, we of course have a disability, you know, focus. So again, I'm not quite sure what would qualify, which these other groups, you know, can fund. But they do need to relate to Watertown.
Yeah, and I like what Carol was talking about, the specialty masks for,
Yep.
you know, people with hearing loss, and, you know, ways to maybe be able to get a supply of those and to share those with people who need them, because, you know, PPE is just hard for people who need it to get it sometimes, and especially the right kind. You know, clear masks are not easy to find unless you have connections. So, and yet so many people with hearing loss rely on reading lips and seeing faces in order to understand what's being said. And so they're really cut off from communication because so many people don't know about or use a clear mask. So,
well, the Marshall.
I wonder if it's possible, even if the commission decided to fund something like that, and if we could do that and they were made available at the library since it's open for browsing, or could make appointments at town hall at the public health or clerk's office to get them. I'm not sure. It's just, I'm thinking on top of my head right now, Gail.
yeah.
I mean, what I could do is put out an email to the department heads, the school HR, the school superintendent, and, you know, just see if they, you know, like what you said, that if they're, you know, do they see that they could use, or there would be a need for the clear masks. And I was thinking, like, the Council on Aging isn't open, but
Right.
the food pantry is. So, you know, the COA might want it for people either coming to the food pantry or the food pantry staff and volunteers themselves. You know, so that might be something. And, you know,
Well, another option might be what the Community Foundation does indirectly, is they give money actually to the schools, to the education side. It's partly through fundraising that there was a board of parents in the schools, and some of you with kids in the schools might know more about that than I do. But I was thinking in terms of special ed or other things, there may be needs that can be identified, whether it's iPads or, you know, something that would help the, you know, students who need special attention.
I would also
And
say,
I don't know others.
I would just say, keep in mind that the directly COVID related costs, there'll be reimbursement to the town for that as well. So the commission might want to think about, you know, how they best want to use their funds that might not be covered elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the commission could acquire some clear masks and then put an announcement out to the community that says, if you have a hearing loss and need a clear mask, and then we could send it to them, or something like that.
I have a comment. I have a quick comment. So related to the clear mask. So I'm the one with the hearing loss. So it would be no help to me personally at all if I had one on. You know what I mean? Because it's like you guys don't need it for me, you know, but I need it for you, you know, or the kid at the grocery store, or, you know, and that's my worst place. I try to go to small places now because of the ambient noise. So I have my cochlear implants, but the ambient noise is like just at grocery stores, it's like all bets are off. And so I try to kind of guess what they're going to say to me, you know, plastic or whatever. And I know they're talking, but I don't know what they're saying. So, so just keep that in mind. So it would be more for the staff, the town staff, and less for the individuals, if that makes sense.
No, that's a very good point. Very good point. Yeah. Okay, well, let's, maybe Carol, you could get us some information and maybe a couple sources and prices and those kinds of things. And we could talk about it at our next meeting.
Yeah, and I guess I'll just interject too that, again, that it may be something the commission requests, doing some research, a certain amount, and the town can acquire them, and then the town gets reimbursed out of the CARES Act versus, and I'm not saying you don't want to, but versus taking directly out of the commission budget. It's just something to think of.
Yeah.
I agree because,
John and then Carol?
Well, we may want to wait a bit too, and just see what needs arise after the dust settles and the schools start up in whatever form they're going to.
Yeah.
And other situations.
Good point. Carol?
Yeah, and so I'll get some information. I know there's like several of my colleagues have been, you know, compiling really good information. And again, there's not one perfect thing. And if you have an all clear mask, and I could show you one that I have, if it's all clear, you know, the sound quality and the volume is going to drop considerably because the voice is going to bounce back to the speaker. But if you have the cloth mask, it's you know, it's a little better. So there are different types, and I'll share that with you guys. But I think it's just something that I would like to see, like us kind of like just put out there to the town employees, that awareness that, you know, it's really, you know, it's challenging for people with hearing loss right now. You know, if you're interacting with the person, you're going to have to be really creative, and you got to, you know, now more than ever, carry pen and paper and be aware if they're not responding, they probably do have a hearing loss, you know, and they're probably very anxious too. So just put that out there too, and I will do my research and get back to you next month.
Sounds good. I just remembered an email last week that I sent to Gail and to Steve Magoon. The Mass Office on Disability has funds available in two categories. One is for planning and one is for capital expenses for cities and towns. And the grant cycle is opening up as of this last week, I think. And I suggested to Steve Magoon and that I thought it might be worth considering applying for the strategic planning grants to create an ADA, basically a transition compliance plan for the town. Supposedly one was done like back in like 1990 or 1991. I don't know that I've ever seen it. I don't think Gail has ever seen it. You know, it was kind of the beginning when all the buildings were assessed and all that kind of stuff way back at the beginning of the ADA era. But you know, that was nearly 30 years ago. And I think it would be very good for the town to create a new plan that sort of assesses where we are now and kind of where we need to go. So I'm hoping that Steve Magoon and his department will develop and submit a grant application probably for about $75,000 to develop a strategic plan for the town. I think it would be a really good idea. And I think, Gail, you and I probably should follow up with him and see if he needs anything from us, but he seemed interested, so I think we should pursue that.
Great idea.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yeah. And I think that is it on my agenda. Does anyone else have anything else they want to discuss this evening?
Oh, this is me again. So
Uh-huh.
very quickly, I think Gail put out like an email last month related to the upcoming, I think, 35th anniversary, or 30th anniversary of the 25th anniversary of the Commission on Disability. So I think maybe we want to, maybe Gail might want to talk about that and some ideas and just how we can commemorate that and raise public awareness.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, I just, I saw an article and I thought, maybe there's some ideas of what, our commission could do. It was more of like, oh, here, here's a big idea. How could we, kind of piggyback on the 30th anniversary? Just, I don't even know what it would be like. Would it be, just a banner or, some news article in the paper or, it was just like, well, that's a good idea. And, maybe we could jump on it. Gives the Commission on Disability some, visibility in the community. So that's why I just.
No, that's, I had forgotten that you had sent that out, and I think it's a very good idea. So I think we should all kind of be thinking about it, and we can brainstorm, and we'll put it on the agenda for next month and try to put together more of a plan on how we can do something to celebrate that. Yeah,
I think if nothing else, we should get Charlie Brightrose to put something in the Watertown news site that he runs. Mm-hmm. As a, this is all the achievements we've had in our last however many years it is. I'm sorry, I'm very new, so I don't know the full history, but just some kind of article showing our achievements, and because I don't think a lot of people in town even know we exist, even people with disabilities.
No, I think
I have
that's
a comment.
True. Yeah,
and
Carol?
I have a quick comment related to this. So I participated in a webinar, like it was like a forum commemorating the 30th anniversary of the ADA, and it was sponsored by City of Boston, Boston Center for Independent Living. And so what they had was and it was very short but sweet, but they had like a webinar with strategically with like certain people who could talk about the past, present, challenges. And I wonder if we can start thinking about that. We don't have to really talk about it yet, but something like that, if we could like do that and have that kind of like promoted through, Watertown cable access or something. So just something to think about. We could bring in somebody, we could bring in like the original founder, like one of the original people from the Watertown Commission on Disability, and that was Jack Gannon, I believe, or John Gannon.
John Gannon. John Gannon was involved in the early days.
And we could bring in George, because he's like, he knows how to manipulate the media, he's really good at that. So, or maybe you could bring him in to interview, moderate, just 2 or 3 people. I would love to see that and really promote awareness of disability and challenges, especially now in the time of, pandemics, so
Good.
Just a thought.
All right, well, we'll put it on the agenda for next month, but I thank you for refreshing my memory and bringing that back up as a good topic.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's great. All right. Well, hearing no other items to talk about this evening, we'll look at our next meeting would be Wednesday, September 16th at 7 p.m. And Gail, if you could check and make sure that we have the availability of Zoom to do that, that would be great. There's no other conflict. And we'll.
I'm sorry, can I just interject too? Maybe we could get an update from Gail about the Mount Auburn project. I know the state, a lot of things they keep saying, oh, everything's going forward, but it would, you know, reality check maybe. It's just it was in our January's meeting, so I just didn't want to forget about it.
The street, the project.
Right.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm
because World Tech, our consultant, I know a lot of things were on hold and, you know, absences in DPW and stuff, but we're where we are in the potential pipeline on the design for Mount Auburn Street. World Tech was going to talk to us, but that was, we were just talking about it in January, you know, and of course with the pandemic, everything.
So where we are with the design for Mount Auburn Street?
The Mount Auburn Street project, and World Tech is the consultant.
Yeah, and we're going to ask if, you know, had they identified any ADA parking as part of the design? I don't know how much is on hold or rethinking might be happening given our new world that keeps changing. This is kind of in the tickler, if you will.
Would that be Public Works or planning? That I would
Public
Yes,
Works.
so we'll get an update for the next meeting on that. See if we can get an update, because I read something about World Tech in an email, but I can't remember what it was recently about them being at a meeting, but I don't remember what it was. So we should be able to get an update. All right. So thank you, everyone. If there's no other business this evening, then we'll adjourn. Thank you to Watertown Cable and to Stephanie, our court reporter for the evening. And thank you to all of you for being here this evening. And we'll see you next month.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.